Welcome to Vlog 1, Skills and Capacities in the Weight Room, Module SAC 7108. The objective of this vlog is to analyse two examples of two weight room activities in which the first will be a squat and the second will be a walk-in lunge. We will assess whether the two activities have a skill or a capacity deficit and then identify exercises or cues in order to improve the activity. Athlete 1 is 16 weeks post ACL reconstruction with a patellofemoral graft. From the posterior view, Athlete A completes a well-controlled squat, showing no lateral shifts. However, you do notice the level of the bar sloping towards the right. On side view, you can see the knees both anteriorly translate. However, there is excessive anterior trunk lean, which is exaggerated during the ascent phase. This shows the athlete's need to make the movement posterior chain dominant, as the centre of mass is over the toes. An on-bed assessment clearly shows that athlete A is able to do a straight leg raise to full range both sides, showing good hamstring length. He's able to also complete a Thomas test, which looks at hip flexibility and also distal quad flexibility, which when he goes and does it onto his left and his right, they're both shown to be equal. Adductor length is equal, shown by a bent knee fallout, and quad length is also shown to be equal during a pro knee flexion test. This shows that the athlete has no restrictions in terms of mobility at both the hip and the knee. This next section we're going to look at athlete A performing the squat in barefoot and in lifters. Again, as to the previous squat, there is significant forward trunk lean when performing in barefoot and in lifters, which is evident from the frontal plane view. Both knees also track over the toes, however do not track past, and even whilst wearing lifters, show a desire to make the squat posterior chain dominant. Next we'll look at athlete A's strength capacity. Next you'll be able to see athlete A completing a single leg squat to box. He's able to complete 26 on his left and 23 on his right. Athlete A also completes a single leg long lever bridge capacity. He's able to complete 23 on his left and able to complete 22 on his right. This is within 10% of each other. When cued to drive the knees forward and maintain a more upright trunk posture, he increases his knee moment arm and is able to reduce his posterior chain dominant squat. Athlete A demonstrates a movement adaptation due to a previous ACL reconstruction. He demonstrates equal and full range of movement and shows equal strength capacity. He chooses to utilise a posterior chain dominant movement pattern in order to prevent greater torque and forces at the knee joint. Moving on to athlete B, who is 4 weeks post hip arthroscopy. Athlete B clearly shows a good ability to control his anterior knee translation and squats in a controlled manner, finishing at the bottom with a good shin angle and torso angle. However, he is unable to reach parallel with the ground and so lacks the depth. As he is able to produce good ankle range of movement, it is important to look at the hip for why. We are now going to look at athlete B's mobility. During a bent knee fallout, you can see a 16-degree range of movement deficit on the athlete's right side. You can also see that during flexion and internal rotation, the right hip has a loss of range of movement. The pro knee flexion test shows equal distal quad length bilaterally. The straight leg raise shows equal posterior chain length as both sides flex equally. During the Thomas test, you can see a large discrepancy between left and right, with the right showing a reduced knee flexion, which identifies tightness through the right hip flexor and quads when the left hip is flexed. Again, as with athlete B's original squat, you can see that the athlete adopts an anterior trunk lean and is unable to gain a parallel depth whilst in bare feet. However, whilst wearing lifters, he is able to increase his depth and encourages him to have this more upright torso posture. The lifters encourage a greater knee moment arm and therefore reduce the torque and range of movement at the hip. This allows for the torso to remain more upright and reduces compression at the anterior hip. To increase athlete C depth during the squat, the athlete would benefit from 3D quad and hip flex stretching and adductor rock backs to improve his right hip mobility. Moving on to athlete C, who completes a walking lunge and shows a skill issue. As you can see, the athlete shows good coordination through the walking lunge, however the right knee tracks to the outside edge of the foot. On a static split squat, you can also see this when the athlete is not cued, however the left knee anterior translates over the second toe. As you can see, the angle between ASIS on left and right is significantly different. When the athlete completes a straight leg raise, you can see the right leg has a reduced range of movement compared to the left. However, when placing the opposite hip into posterior tilt, you can see the right straight leg raise increasing range of movement, showing athletes poor coordination in controlling the pelvic tilt of the right pelvis. To encourage the athlete to control the pelvis, a split straight leg lower is used to disassociate both hips. This encourages the athlete to hold the posterior pelvic tilt whilst the opposite hip is extending. Next, when performing the walking lunge, the athlete is cued to anteriorly translate the knee over the second toe and cued for full foot pressure. C therefore shows a motor control issue which can be improved by a motor control exercise and with simple cues. Athlete D also completes a walking lunge, however shows a capacity issue. Again, the athlete is able to perform the walking lunge well, but the right knee also moves outwards like athlete C. You can clearly see the athlete has good range of movement at the hip and knee in the sagittal and frontal plane. When you look at the ankle joint mobility, there is significant difference in knee to wall, left ankle scoring 12 and the right ankle scoring 8. This would explain the need for the athlete to find any alternative pathway to complete the walking lunge, and so moves the knee out to get around this reduced range of movement. Moving on to exercises and cues. In order to increase the ankle dorsiflexion capacity, the athlete can perform banded knee to walls and big toe knee to walls. This will promote the talus to posterior translate in the talocrural joint and promote the full tissue length in the calf musculature. The slouch and reach can be used to promote anterior knee translation over the second toe, accessing this new ankle range of motion. Both athletes C and D present with biomechanical similarities, however athlete C has full range of movement and struggles with the skill of the task, which the use of cues helps with. However, athlete D shows a reduced range of movement at the ankle joint and so uses a different plane of movement in order to still allow the knee to anterior translate forward.